Non-Americans, what American food do you find questionable? My parents are immigrants, they always say the desserts, grocery store cupcakes and stuff, has so much sugar it feels too gritty and uncooked to them. Also soft-baked things, like chewy chocolate chip cookies they thought were weird in the beginning, like the cookie was undercooked. I love soft-baked cookies though, so I bake them all the time, they've come around to liking them, haha. Another one I hear a lot is the food coloring. My mom is often perplexed and grossed out by very saturated unnaturally colored foods. Usually frosting or candy, she tells me it just looks unhealthy and is unappetizing. Also, my mom is low-key traumatized from Twizzlers LOL. She said the first time she saw it she wondered why people were chewing on plastic. She then tried it and said it also tasted like plastic. Haha. Food coloring in candy is one thing, but I get freaked out when companies use coloring to make a food unnaturally more saturated than it should be. That dried mango that is bright orange. Why? It's already orange. Why add unnecessary food coloring if you're not actually changing the color? Oh wow. I am sure it does. I was a typical white middle-class American kid, grew up on the West Coast. Generic stuff, I literally ate Wonder Bread, it sure as hell isn't good bread, sugary cereals advertised in TV, and when Hamburger Helper came out, my mom enthusiastically used it. Google it if you don't know what it is. She worked a regular job and had little energy for cooking. Almost the worst diet ever. Canned vegetables. I do eat fresh or frozen vegetables and fruit now, when I'm eating healthy, instead of canned, and I eat real bread. So food that doesn't look like I expect it to bothers me. Of course, I am also autistic, which makes food even more complicated a lot of times. I'll have to try the non-sulfured apricots sometime. I will just have to close my eyes first. Yeah, kind of a weirdo. Nostalgia is a hell of an emotion for food. Marketing for junk food does a spectacular job at making those connections early and deep. My parents fed us pretty healthy, but when we were having a fun treat, which I realize was more about being stretched thin till payday, it was the Kraft mac and cheese in the blue box. Still hits a certain spot about 2x/year when I'm lonely or homesick. When I learned what natto was, I was able to relate to it by way of Twizzlers. I grew up on Twizzlers and got it from my mom, who in turn, along with my aunts and uncle, got it from my grandma. Every time we go on a family trip there's at least one big bag there that ends up being empty by the time we get to the destination. But every person I've met so far who likes them says that their family or parents like them and eats them a lot. I've yet to meet a person who is the only person in their family to like them. When Pull and Peel came out when I was a kid, they were super cool and popular in my school, like a weird status symbol. I ate some on the same night that I came down with a stomach virus, and unfortunately the association stuck. It's been like 30 years and the thought of their flavor still makes me vaguely nauseous. For a Halloween game of Honey Heist, think D&D but bears stealing honey and a lot dumber, I was hosting for a group of German friends. I brought out a bunch of American candies, including Twizzlers. They were universally hated and tasted like nothing and felt like plastic, and since that moment any time the group fumbled at taking a swipe of candy they ended up with Twizzlers. Haha. This is so well articulated. I'm a dual citizen USA/UK, but born and raised in America for the most part. I've lived in both places though and traveled/lived in the South Americas. I much prefer the sweets outside of America, and all of those reasons your parents mentioned are spot on. Not to mention, the breads are also far superior everywhere outside of America. And OMG, have you ever had an Italian-grown tomato, in Italy? I'd take the Pepsi challenge on that any day. Updated with sources. Feel free to research it for yourself. As a therapist, I would work with my clients to remove certain foods from diets to help with difficult behaviors. I know it's hard to believe, but there is a lot of research suggesting many negative outcomes. I am getting downvoted, which is fine, but people really should know the full details before they make a decision about their intake of these substances. Low-key hate Twizzlers, they really do taste like plastic and they stick to my teeth, so I still taste them throughout the day as I try to pry them off with my tongue. Also similar to the food coloring, blue raspberry flavor, like I was born and raised in America and I still don't get it. I just like saying ooh blue raspberry, my favorite, only to confuse my non-American cousins and friends. First generation American, can confirm American desserts have way too much sugar. I grew up used to my mom and her friends baking good stuff. Of course though, as a kid I loved American junk food baked goods because of all the sugar, but now I can barely stand something that is too sugary. As someone who immigrated here, I totally understand about store-bought desserts being too sweet. I get they have to be sweet, but man, it feels like I had a bucket of pure sugar every time I have a Snickers bar or cake here. Candy bars almost feel like they are giving a burning sensation, and I feel my blood pressure shoot up after having one. You'll be comforted to hear that half of Americans don't eat grocery store cupcakes and stuff. It's vile. I have never been certain who buys the cardboard sugar cookies or, worse, the cakes with the chemical frosting. I think they may be exclusively for people to offload onto other people at social gatherings. Now, we do some distinctly American desserts, and those are good. Pies, cookies. I witnessed a Turkish friend's first corn dog. He grabbed it and started eating it, not understanding what a corn dog was. After the first bite, he was so surprised and bursted into excitement. "Whoa, there's a hot dog in here." He loved every bite and went back for about 5 more. I love it when we get to be there for their American revelations. I taught a kid from India who lost his mind over the phrase "holy cow." He was also very excited on Hat Day. He borrowed a friend's cowboy hat. "Mrs. H. I'm a cowboy and an Indian." He was so excited. That was 9 years ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. My mind is boggled by the amount of comments saying spray cheese. I've lived in the US my entire life, 40 years, and worked in a grocery store for many years. I've never had it, and I've rarely seen people buy it. I think it is a niche thing. Definitely not flying off the shelves. It's just so interesting seeing so many comments about it. Is that how we are advertised in other countries? Spray cheese is too expensive for the VA to feed to veterans. All they're allowed is the free government cheese leftover from the 1970s. And don't worry, it's safe to eat. We had it securely stored in the farthest corner of the same Area 51 warehouse where we keep the dead alien bodies. And we blew the dust off and picked the mouse turds out of it before serving it to our vets. Haha, I get it sometimes for the rare occasion that I get high and too lazy for brie and baguette. Yes, I can get that lazy. Pro tip, abandon reason and get the American cheese variety and not the cheddar. Also, get decent crackers. And some more wheat immediately before hosing the cracker down with cheese. Then it's kind of okay. It's one of those things that gets told about the U.S., without it being an actual massive thing. Being a Dutchman, I hear so many things from the US that would be Dutch and no respectful Dutch person would eat or do. One brilliant example is the boy with his finger in the DK. I come from a very Dutch traditional family, but the first time I heard about it was on Animaniacs. Or like that we would love Heineken because it's Dutch. I don't know anybody here who would drink Heineken if anything else was available. We call it sewage water. It's a nostalgia thing for kids who grew up watching the Goofy movie. Also, if you can put cheese flavor into chips or crackers, why not a spray? It's just a goofy suburban nostalgia food that makes you feel like a kid again. I recommend it alongside a serving of SpaghettiOs washed down with a delicious cup of Kool-Aid or Orange High C. American here, I have eaten it when I was younger, but it was more of a "this is kinda cool, let's buy it and show the kids." My parents were middle class growing up. We had enough and could splurge a bit, but cheap double-duty fun was always a good idea. And spray cheese is snack food and entertainment all in one. Keep in mind we got it like twice, years apart. It's not really fun for long, but is an interesting occasional novelty. When the guys that created Outback did so, they were cashing in on the Australian craze of the late 80s and early 90s. They put all sorts of very tasty things on the menu and just gave them very Americanized Australian names like Bloomin' Onion and Jackaroo Chops. As silly as the restaurant start was, the food ended up being very good and they're one of the only big chain franchises still thriving. I remember reading about the science behind why caffeine plus liquor is bad. Basically your body has to metabolize caffeine before it can metabolize liquor. So you're getting a little buzz on while getting really f-king amped up on a lot of caffeine, then your body finishes dealing with the caffeine and all the alcohol hits you at once and punches you in the face, hence the blackouts people got from Four Loko. I remember not remembering the one time I drank a bunch of them.